What is going on, everybody? It is Dylan with DFS, bringing you a brand new video. Today's video going over Week 13's main slate, quarterbacks and running backs to target. So 3 quarterbacks above 8K on this slate, and as of right now, I have Jalen Hurts and CJ Stroud as tournament plays. Jalen Hurts, the most expensive quarterback on the slate, going against a San Fran defense who doesn't allow a lot of fantasy points to quarterbacks. They're one of the best teams against the run. Not a lot of points allowed to quarterbacks mobile. Through the air, though, to wide receivers, they allow a lot of yards. So factor that in as you will. But 8,200, facing a top 10 defense, just all numbers wise, top 10 defense. Their defense has been really hot as far as getting sacks and stuff like that lately. Jalen Hurts, though, averaging 28 DraftKings fantasy points per game at home. 19.9 is his floor against winning teams so far this season, in a high total. Not the highest, but a high total. Believe it or not, we have 3 really high totals on this slate, and some of the other games are very high as well compared to what we normally get. So some good football expected from what Vegas is putting their numbers at. And then also you could look on the right here. I have the fantasy points per game again, so kind of where that defense is allowing that position group fantasy point numbers. Top of the right has the keys for what each color means and stuff like that. Plays will get added throughout the week for me. Spreadsheets are available to our Discord subscribers. It's just $10 for a week. We have other packages, but if you guys want to trial it out, $10, very cheap. For the stuff that we provide, there's more than just this, but this is just content for you guys. So getting back into it, though, CJ Stroud, $100 cheaper than Hurts. You could see his matchup against Denver's defense, averaging 27.6 DK fantasy points per game at home. Denver, 19 passing touchdowns allowed. It's a very high total. Denver only allowed 214, I believe, is the highest, but no more than 215 in the last 5 games. So CJ Stroud in that offense, so they break those barriers. Those numbers don't mean anything to the Houston offense when CJ Stroud's a quarterback. So I think he's good for a tournament. I don't love it in cash. If you wanted to play it, go for it. I'm just not there myself. Tua, 7,900 Tua against Washington. Tua is a cash quarterback for me right now. Highest total on the slate, 50.5. Washington allowed 3,330 yards and 28 passing touchdowns to quarterbacks. Best PFF pass block advantage. There's a lot to like for Tua. Washington, a new defensive coordinator too, I believe. So that might have some complications. We'll see what that looks like. Maybe the defense gets better. So we'll see what Washington's defense looks like. But Miami's offense, one of the hottest offenses, more high-powered scoring offenses in the league, and the defense is only getting better. Then we go down to Brock Purdy, next quarterback on my list, and he's a cash play as well. At 6,100 going against Philly, you see he's averaging 19.64 DK points a game, and Philly's allowing 23.5, right behind Washington. So the two, Tua and Brock, Tua's for his price point, like it's good compared to Stroud and Hurts as far as value and the matchup. But Brock Purdy facing that Philly team who is the best defense against the run. Least amount of fantasy points to running backs too, I believe. So, high total, 23 passing touchdowns, second most passing touchdowns allowed. Philly, the 4th worst red zone defense in the league, which means if you get in the red zone, you're scoring. San Fran, top 10 red zone offense in the league. If they get in the red zone, they're scoring. So do with that information as you will. We've seen Brock Purdy get some high 20-point games. Don't look for him to get a 30, 40. If that's not Brock Purdy. But I could see a 3-touchdown, 250-plus yard game out of Brock Purdy in this matchup. We're getting a rematch. I'm very excited for this game. Upset I can't watch it, but looking forward to seeing the results of what that looks like. So, yeah, Brock Purdy, love him. Russell Wilson, tournament play for me at 5,700 against Houston. This one, the Denver Houston, which is why I said you could play Stroud. I don't have a problem with that. I just personally won't get there. I'd rather play Russ against Houston. I don't know. I think both defenses can be good, but Denver's defense has definitely improved quite a bit. High total. Texans allowing 250 or more passing yards in the last 3 out of 4 games. 6 most passing yards allowed on the season. The only downside is only 11 passing touchdowns allowed. So that's one a game, pretty much, Houston's allowing. So do with that information as you will. You see they're allowing 20.9. So some positives there. Gardner Minshew, 5,300 against Tennessee. Came in relief in their first game, I believe. And that was the game Anthony Richardson got hurt and ended up being done for the season after. Third best PFF pass block advantage. Titans giving up 7.7 yards per attempt and only 3 interceptions. So Gardner Minshew kind of expect an interception out of him. But the way that he moves that offense, Jonathan Taylor's out. So I kind of like the passing game a little more for Indy this week. At his price point, I don't think it's really difficult for him to get a 20-point fantasy game here against Tennessee. So, like him. Next is Bryce Young. I have as a value at 4,900 against Tampa. Third most passing yards allowed. 5 quarterback rushing touchdowns allowed. Bryce Young's just had a low ceiling, but his coaching staff is gone, right? Head coach is gone. Offensive coordinator, I'd like to say, Deuce Staley's gone. But his quarterback coach is gone. So there's a lot of uncertainties. But I do like Bryce Young's matchup against Tampa. One of the worst defenses against quarterbacks and against the pass this season. So there are positives for Bryce Young at his price point. So I like that. Mac Jones, Bailey Zappi, I have as a note. We'll figure out later in the week. I would have to assume it's Bailey Zappi after that terrible game Mac Jones had against the Giants. Terrible. And it wasn't just the team. No, it was Mac Jones. He looked bad. So hopefully Bailey Zappi gets a shot. If he does, 4,800 against the Chargers defense, who cannot stop anybody. They just can't. They give up so many fantasy points to all positions. It's all good matchups for New England players. The only other thing that I'm watching for this week, as of right now, maybe more information comes out. Baker is questionable, so that's something to watch for. Kyle Trask could be the starting quarterback, but Joe Flacco might get the start this week. We'll see what that looks like. PJ Walker's an option too. I would prefer Flacco, though, if I'm looking at it from a fantasy perspective. At 4,600 could be the starting quarterback against the Rams. So that's something to watch for, is the Cleveland Browns quarterback situation. DTR exited with a concussion. I don't know if it was for sure a concussion or just the protocol or what. But anytime a concussion comes, they're typically out that next game. So look for PJ Walker or Joe Flacco to get the start there. And then running backs. Christian McCaffrey, 9K. I have him as a tournament play. Like I said, Philly plays the run so good. They play running backs really good, right? 15.3. I don't think you need to get Christian McCaffrey this week. If you do, safe running back, right? Like, regardless of how many yards Philly allows, and Christian McCaffrey is like Tyreek Hill. They are both matchup preventative, right? It does not matter who they face, they're going to get theirs, fantasy number wise. So Christian McCaffrey going to be a safe floor, right? By far, you look at his fantasy points per game, by far the highest. 4 points higher than HN and Williams. Bad matchup, but 61 red zone opportunities Christian McCaffrey has. It's not even close to number 2. Number 2 is nowhere near. I think it's about 14 or 15 opportunities less. And like I mentioned, Philly is the 4th worst red zone defense. So they allow teams to score in the red zone. So there's a shot McCaffrey gets a catch for a touchdown. So I do like McCaffrey. I just don't think it's necessary in cash, right? Jonathan Taylor out, so we get a free play basically on DraftKings. Derrick Henry, 6,800 against Tennessee. I have him as a tournament. Top 10 PFF run block advantage. Averaging 21 DK points a game at home. Indy giving up 11 rushing touchdowns so far this year, so Derrick Henry is that red zone carrying back, so I like Derrick Henry for his price. I don't like him necessarily for cash. If you want to play him, you can. I think he's a good tournament play, though. Next is Bijan at 6,700, the best, and they usually always will. PFF run block advantage. He doesn't get a lot of red zone work, which scares me. Jets a top 5 defense for running backs against, I guess you want to say, or just how bad they are against running backs. But I think that it's like top 5 for most yards, receptions, 4 receiving touchdowns, so that's tied for 3rd. Yeah, Bijan looks good in tournaments. It's just unsafe in cash. It's really hard to play Atlanta players in cash. Tournaments, I think it's great. The upside can be there. Breece Hall, I have as a tournament play right now. There's not a lot of information going on it. I'll probably update it throughout the week, but I'm just saving it for now. I think there's a shot with how bad the Jets are and Boyle being the quarterback. Breece Hall gets a couple dump-off, stuff like that, but not in cash. Rachaad White, 6,300 against Carolina. We know how bad Carolina's been against running backs. 19 total touchdowns to running backs. Rachaad White getting 73% of the red zone carries. 6 straight games over 15 DraftKings points. So a lot to like out of Rachaad White, especially his price point. It's continued to rise, but it's still not outrageous enough to where you can't play him from his production. So real like Rachaad White, I think is a great cash play. Going down a couple spots, Ramondre Stevenson, 6,000 against the Chargers' 3rd best PFF run block advantage. Douglas is questionable, another guy that left with a head injury. Last 3 games, 87, 88, 98. I just never fixed it, or maybe it was 87. But yeah, that's his last 3 games just on the ground. 4+ targets in the last 6 games. 3rd most receptions to running backs the Chargers are allowing. So in the receiving game aspect, there's a lot to like for Ramondre Stevenson. Like I mentioned, the Chargers just give up a lot of fantasy points to all positions. So with Douglas out, that makes me like Stevenson that much more. And if it's Bailey Zappi, I like Stevenson even that much more. Devin Singletary tournament play at 5,900 going against Denver's defense, which you gotta account them. 31.5 DraftKings points per game against to running backs. Outsnapped Pierce by a wide margin last week. Denver giving up the 2nd most yards and rushing touchdowns to running backs. So Devin Singletary, didn't get used on the ground a lot, but he got used in the air a lot. He got, I think, 9 fantasy points out of the air and about 4 on the ground. So we're looking for that receiving upside as well against Denver, who's played running backs pretty bad, but they've improved from where they were, if you remember the Miami game. Next 2 values is both Pittsburgh running backs. There's not a lot of value this week that I'm finding. Jerome Ford, maybe another name to consider. Javonte Williams, another name, but as far as actual value that I like and can see somebody playing in cash, I'm not. Right, tournaments, I think they're both good, is Warren and Harris, 54 and 5,200. It's a great matchup for both of them. They split the work. Najee's still getting more red zone work than Warren, which is where Najee got his points, but I think both are fine. One, if not both, are going to have a good game. Someone's going to have a good game, just depending on who. So I like both. And then last but not least, for running backs, we have as a cash play Zach Moss. I could do the information for you guys, but he's just a free square, in my opinion. If you're not playing Zach Moss, you're really hoping he has a bad game, because he's going to be high owned. He's very cheap for a running back, 4,600. That is very cheap for a running back cash play. We saw what he's done without Jonathan Taylor in the beginning of the season. Even his first game, Taylor's first game back, Zach Moss still had a great game against Tennessee team who plays the running back pretty well, but still for the receiving aspect of it too, Zach Moss, he's just too cheap to not put in your cash lineups. Like, he is so cheap. Opportunities are there. No one really else on the indie running back room has gotten any looks, so it's Zach Moss getting a majority at his price point. He doesn't need to do a lot, right? So if you're doing a 3x, you're looking at 13 fantasy points, which is easily realistic for Zach Moss to hit that 3x value. So on DraftKings, he's free. I imagine on FanDuel, he's pretty cheap as well. So, but that is it. Like I said, if you guys are interested in getting the spreadsheet, I will have it available, fully completed for you guys come Sunday morning. That way you can look at all the plays, you can go back and forth, and they're all updated. So, hope you guys did enjoy. I will have the showdown video coming out on Thursday, and then Friday I will have the wide receivers and tight ends for the main slate. So, if you guys are looking forward to that, that'll be out on Friday. Hope you guys enjoy, and I'll see you in the next one.